Hello and welcome to the Vine Life Podcast. I'm Tony Clark, your host. I've got a special guest on today's program, and his name is Joseph D. Josselyn. Now, Joseph's interpreters are Peter Dublin for this interview today. Let me tell you a little bit about Joseph. Joseph is the director of Jesus, a Deaf Missions film, which happens to be releasing today, June 20th, 2024. Now, a little bit about the film. For the first time in history, a deaf audience will have the unique opportunity to experience the story of Jesus presented as a feature film entirely in American Sign Language. Jesus, a Deaf Missions film, will take you on a journey with Jesus and his disciples. Witness his miracles, his transformative power, and his challenges to the religious elite in a time of high tension under Roman rule in Judea. Now, Joseph is also the producer at Deaf Missions, and he's here to tell us about this groundbreaking film. Now, more about this groundbreaking film can be found at JesusDeafFilm.com. Once again, JesusDeafFilm.com. Joseph, thank you so much for coming on the program today.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, Joseph, before we talk about this movie, you work for Deaf Missions. Tell us a little bit about Deaf Missions.
Sure. So, I have been working with Deaf Missions as the chief media officer now. I've been responsible for leading the media team, helping come up with different resources in sign language for the deaf community. We have resources like the Bible in sign language. We've got discipleship resources, and since 1970, Deaf Missions has been doing and creating resources for the deaf community, of which I've been a part of since 2006.
Now, Joseph, from my research, I'm coming to understand that the deaf mission, or I'm sorry, the deaf community is really a forgotten mission field. We spend many hours and many days and many years translating the Bible into different languages, but we seem to forget about the deaf community. I think that, tell me a little bit about American Sign Language version of the Bible that you worked on in the past.
Sure, you're right. So yeah, the deaf community uses sign language, and what we refer to this as a heart language. Since we don't listen with our ears, we listen with our eyes, and so our preferred language is indeed American Sign Language. And it is one of the biggest challenges for me is most deaf children have hearing parents, and so a lot of that results in challenges with communication when parents who don't know their language, or sadly not even willing to learn that language. And so I was fortunate. My parents growing up did learn the language, and that's how I was able to be introduced to Jesus as a child. In reference to the ASL version of the Bible you're referring to, reading is not our first language. Sign language is. It's much more natural. So to read requires a lot more mental work to do, to figure out the meaning behind what's being said. With sign language, it's very visual and very much easier to understand what's being said. And that is why God called us to begin and complete the project of the first ever completed Bible in American Sign Language.
And just quickly, what type of feedback have you gotten from the deaf community when they can view or essentially read the Bible in their own heart language?
You know what? Just clarification, the feedback from the deaf community from that resource. Perfect. So when we do the translation work, first we had a rough draft, and we would take that rough draft to the deaf community at a host church or something. The deaf community would come. We'd show them a video, make sure that it was clear and that they can understand what the content. And if there were questions or they couldn't understand, we knew we'd have to go back and revisit, make some revisions until the final product was indeed crystal clear when it came to the translation. And as far as the feedback from the deaf community goes, the feedback is so exciting to see that they now have a better understanding of scriptures. They can visualize what the Bible is saying so much better and much more natural of a process. And so the response has been extraordinary.
Well, it must be very rewarding that God used you in such a way to impact the lives of the deaf community. Joseph, I want to fast forward just a little bit to this movie that we're focusing on today. Whose brainchild was this movie? Where did the concept come from? And how did you begin working on the movie?
Sure. So the concept of this film came in a hard language. Started rather back when I was just a little boy. I would watch Jesus of Nazareth, and I'd watch the film, obviously relying on the subtitles to understand what was being said and what was the action on the screen. And so during that process of watching the film, I began to wonder what it would be like if Jesus was to sign. So that was the seed that was planted as a child. And the fast forward years later, when I joined the team at Deaf Missions, the concept came up of what about making a film about the life of Jesus? And everybody was on board. We just weren't ready with the technology at that time the way it was. Funding was an issue, the resources weren't there, and so our network was somewhat limited. That was 2006 or so. And fast forward, when we were doing the book of Job as part of our translation work, we had the conversation, you know what, instead of just verse by verse translation, why not make it a movie? And so we did the translation work at the same time we made this film. And the community's response, I mean, they loved it. They watched the movie, they loved the costumes, the acting, and they said, what's next, guys? We got to have more of stuff like this. And so that's when we revisited the concept of Jesus. And this was one of the biggest opportunities to express the gospel of Jesus Christ in the story and life of Christ through a form of a movie, because we wanted people to have that attraction to the life of Christ. And so that's where everything began.
Joseph, talk about the casting of the actors in this movie. How did you find the actors to play the characters in the Gospels? What was the process there?
Sure. So we did online auditions. We sent out advertisements saying we were looking for actors. And so we began to get video auditions. We had those conversations. And now one of the requirements that we had is that every actor was deaf, because of sign language being that heart language. We wanted that to be the case. We didn't want somebody to be in the process of still learning the language, because we really are shooting for an authentic feel to this movie. And so that was the beginning of the process. One of the challenges that we went through is we used the SAG actors. We couldn't use that because we couldn't pull from that pool of actors because our budget was limited, and so we had to pull from the community. And so God provided. We were so blessed to get the actors that we did for this film.
Now, one of the facts of information about this movie that really blew me out of the water was that one of the music composers for this movie is deaf herself. How does that work?
You're right. And ironically enough, she lives next to me, right on the neighboring state of Iowa. She's in Nebraska. But how that worked was, I'm completely deaf. I can't hear a thing. I understand that there's music, but I couldn't tell you, is a violin being used, or is that a trumpet being used? I couldn't tell. I don't have that skill set. But this deaf person now worked alongside a hearing person. So the two of them working together. She had some hearing at a certain level, and so they worked together closely for the music score. And they were able to come to how to tell the story through music, and we felt like the music underscore would really help the vision, help people really grasp the movie better, and it turned out phenomenal. We love the work that they were able to do with that.
Well, I was able to pre-screen the movie. I watched the movie, and I am just amazed at the production behind the movie, the directing as well, and also the music. And Joseph, I'm fascinated with behind the scenes, how things are put together, how things work. What were some of the? Tell me about some of the filming locations. Where was this movie filmed?
Absolutely. That is a fun fact about the film. So we had a lot of research that went into finding these locations. We wanted to film in Israel. We wanted something that gave, but weren't able to. So we wanted to find something that looked the part. So the different sets that we were able to find, one, where were we going to find a Roman set, for example? So these were things that we had to figure out. We began to research and look online and look at different locations that and then part of it, we wanted to build our own set. And then I think with the Chosen out in Utah, they use one of the lakes up there, Gushan, where that didn't work out. So we ended up using a town in LA, which was perfect. And then we also went to Texas as well. And that was a beautiful location that we were able to film in. Then for the scene with the boat where Jesus is walking on the water, we went for the Wave Studio there in Louisiana, where we recorded that. And then for the Sea of Galilee, for that scene, we couldn't figure out for a while where we were going to shoot that, but in Utah, we found Lake Eula. Beautiful, beautiful location. And one of the issues that we then faced was the Roman set. So we began to look internationally. We wanted to do it all here, but just were not able to. And so we found in Bulgaria a Roman set there that met our needs and has been used for plenty of movies before. I think of the film 300 and other big movie names that were filmed on that set. So incredible people to work with. All the details worked out, and that was one of the best experiences we had, was shooting on set in Bulgaria.
Well, again, amazing scenery on the locations that you filmed at. Beautiful movie, by the way. Joseph, I've got a question. I was watching an interview on deaf missions, and the lady was being interviewed, and she was talking about there's a disconnect when a deaf person watches a movie, for example, and there are subtitles. But this Jesus movie, all of the actors are signing while they speak, in essence. And she was saying that she gets much more out of the actors signing than just reading a subtitle. Now, help a hearing person understand that. Why is visual signing so much more of a heart language than just reading a subtitle?
That is a great question. Happy to answer that. So with sign language, yes, it is the heart language of deaf people. So when Jesus is signing, when you see his hands with all of the expressions on his face that are right there, it's one message that works, it's unified. You see his body language, whatever action is taking place, it's right there connected to the person. It's not separate. So while subtitles or captions, you have that disconnect. When you're watching what's being said and the action that's taking place on the screen, it's something different. It's like hearing people. When they come see this film, they'll have to watch the subtitles in order to understand what's being said on screen. And so it was vital that it is vital that it's in sign language. And then also how we framed the shot was very important too, to make sure that the signs were clear, that the every moment that was the signs and the hands and the face were included in the shot, because that is part of filming through a deaf lens, what that looks like.
Again, it's a fascinating movie to watch from a person who can hear. So I can just imagine it would be even more fascinating, more intriguing for a person that can hear. So again, an amazing, fantastic movie. I've got another question for you, Joseph, something I'm always curious about. I love behind the scenes of movie shooting, movie filming, behind the scenes of TV and so forth. And it's my understanding when you work on a project like this for months on end, you become family with the actors. You become family with the other directors or producers. All of the folks behind the cameras, you become family. And just on a personal note, what's it like to finish filming on the movie and then you all go your separate ways? It's got to be heartbreaking in a way.
It is. Yes, 100%. There is that very much of a family feel, and we're all part of that deaf community. So we have our culture, we have our identity, we have our language. We understand each other. The experiences that we go through as a deaf person, we understand what that's like. Deaf humor is it's just natural because we are part of the deaf family, if you would. Christian or not, it was great to have everyone a part of the filming, a part of the crews, and working together. Of course, communication is not an issue as well because we don't have to depend on an interpreter for that third party to relay the information. Like, I want this in the shot, or I want this included in the shot. I just sign it right there. We moved quickly, and everything was just very efficient, and things ran smoothly. And working with the actors, even tells like, hey, give me a little more emotion on that part or on this line. It was so much more effective than it would be, say, to have a third party there to help translate or interpret that. There were some frustrating moments, of course. I mean, the long hours. Sometimes there was some breakdown in communication. I mean, you just think about the natural process of communicating. Some misunderstandings and whatnot. Those were natural parts of the process, as you would expect. But being able to work together as part of the team, it truly, really impacted the level of work that we did. And now, today being the release day, everybody's been texting each other, just so excited that today's the day. It's this moment that we've been waiting for. We're super excited about it.
Again, this moment that we've been waiting for. Joseph, what do you want people to come away with when after they watch this movie and they step out of the theater? What do you want them to come away with? What do you want them to take away?
Sure, a couple of things. For the deaf community, I really hope and pray that they come to a better understanding of who Jesus is. I want them, any questions that they may have had prior to this, to be answered. And we tested this already in the deaf community, and we've heard the response from several said, with it being in my language, with it being the quality that it is, I connected so much more to Jesus, and the fact that they take ownership because it's been for deaf, by deaf. So I really hope that they have a great connection to the movie and to Jesus, and maybe even inspire some to do their own deaf cinema as well and create their own film. The second thing I'd like people to walk away with, for the hearing community, we want them to come, we want them to watch the film, to have a better understanding of our deaf culture and our identity and our place in the world and how we operate in a hearing world. It is different than how you operate in a hearing world. How we communicate and do things, I think by watching the film gives a better understanding and hopefully a better appreciation as what new art and deaf art might look like.
One of the things, Joseph, while watching this movie, I noticed is there are English subtitles. So a person that doesn't know ASL, American Sign Language, like myself, I can follow this movie. I can read the subtitles, and I can get a lot out of this movie, even though I can hear. You want to talk about that?
The question real quick. One second. Let me rephrase the question. Sure. Hearing people have said, when they they want us to understand, like, there is no voice, right, in deaf film. We do have that music underscore, and so it really almost causes the focus to be on the actors themselves and the emotions that you're feeling and sensing through each shot. So that is a great experience to have. And then for the deaf, and then for the subtitles, we went back and forth with English. It's completely a different language structure than American Sign Language, so we wanted to make sure that others had access to the film as well.
Again, an incredible movie. Are there any plans in the future to do more films like this Jesus film?
Right now, on my radar is rest. But absolutely, we would absolutely love to do additional films like this. I'm hoping more modern day dramas, even that relates to current culture, that has a spiritual application and spiritual values to it. As far as storylines, we'll see what God reveals to us in the weeks and months ahead.
And Joseph, if you don't mind, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. This movie, it's my understanding, it's to present the message, the life of Christ, the life of Jesus, to present the gospel in American Sign Language. And I've never seen this before, but can you just simply sign the gospel to those maybe that are watching? They have a hearing impairment, but they do know American Sign Language, and they want to know what the gospel is, what it's about, what is Jesus all about. Can you just simply sign to them the gospel, if you don't mind?
So the question is, what is the gospel? Yeah, okay. The gospel is the good news of Jesus Christ and the life he gave by death on the cross, and his resurrection, and the power that when faith in him, we can receive eternal life.
Amazing. I have never seen that before in American Sign Language or signed before, and I appreciate that. That was amazing.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Joseph, how can people support this movie? How can they support deaf missions? How would they do that?
Great question. First and foremost, the best way to do that is go to the movie theater, buy that ticket right now. That's the best way. Help spread the word, encourage others to go. And then secondly, if they want to support deaf missions and further projects, they can go to www.deafmissions.com. And they have a donate tab right there that would help us create future resources for the deaf community.
Absolutely. And Joseph, as we land the plane here, as we come to a conclusion, is there anything that you want to add, that you want to tell people about the film?
So I'm very excited that the film is finally here. This is very much a historical, monumental milestone for us that we hope shakes the world. The movie itself, fully directed by deaf, having a deaf crew completely in sign language, Right now, it's over 300 movie theaters, so that is in itself a historical accomplishment. And so we pray that this will help other deaf filmmakers be inspired to create more content, more resources as well, as a result of this film.
And again, more information about this film can be found at JesusDeafFilm.com. And again, JesusDeafFilm.com. And Jesus, a Deaf Missions Film is opening today. It's releasing today, June 20th, 2024. So you can run out and get your tickets. You can look up the locations that it's playing online at that website. But Joseph, I can't thank you enough for coming on the program today and telling us about Jesus, a Deaf Missions Film. Thank you so much.
You bet. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Peter Dublin, as well, for being the interpreter today.
My pleasure.
And guys, I will ask you to hang on 30 seconds post-interview just to make sure everything uploads correctly. But again, Joseph, thank you so much, and until next time.
Thank you so much, Tony, for having me on. Nice talking with you today.